Hey there, and welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show, where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. I am Casey Watts, school impact strategist and the host of this show. Now, if you are here, then you inevitably are an instructional leader who wants to make change happen, even when change seems impossible. And you can do that if you have cohesive, vision-driven teams that have done clarity work. They know exactly where they're headed and how they're going to get there. These teams have done identity work, and they've built their self and social awareness skills. And they have done collaboration work, and they know how to move beyond faux collaboration to get to true collaboration where change happens and where people get on board. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations that help you to do exactly that. The work that needs to be done to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. I am pumped for tonight's episode, like more than I've probably been for many other episodes, especially the ones that I do by myself, because those are just like laissez-faire, right? But when you have another person on that you get to talk with, it just makes it so much more exciting. And tonight is the 50th episode. So I'm going live with Talesha Savage, and we're going to be talking about some team engagement content. And I can't wait to dig into this conversation. But before we get started, I do want to tell you that because it's the 50th episode, I'm doing a giveaway. And you better believe that when we hit these milestones, I'm going to be doing giveaways because that's what I love to do, because I want you to enjoy coming, and I want to really connect with my audience and just say thank you for coming and joining me for these live sessions, because you are doing the hard work of bettering yourself to become an instructional leader who makes change happen. Okay, so here's what we're going to do for this giveaway. If you will simply comment winner in the comments, and if you are catching the replay and the podcast, listen, subscribe and just add it to the comments of the podcast episode or on YouTube or anywhere you're joining from, comment winner. And I'm going to be doing a drawing for the people who have commented. Now, if you join my Vision-Driven Teams for Instructional Leaders Facebook group, you get an additional entry. So be sure, if you're not already a member of the group, go to Facebook and join us there. Here's what I'm going to be giving away. I'm going to be drawing for one winner who gets a free Clarity Cycle email course that is valued at $109. I'm just going to give that away. And then I'm going to give away 50% off of a Clarity Cycle Mastermind membership, which is valued at $297. And then I'm also going to be giving away one of my very favorite books called Switch: How to Make Change Happen When Change is Hard. So be sure to comment winner, and I'm going to put you into the drawing. Okay, now let's get to the real deal. I am joined with Talesha Savage, whose name I just absolutely love. Talesha, thank you for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. I am so excited to be here with you tonight. And 50 episodes, like that's such an amazing milestone. It's like eyes on the goal and like just checking it off. So, congratulations
That's
to you
right.
for 50 episodes.
Yeah, thanks, girl. Okay, so Talesha, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, and what it is that you're bringing to us tonight.
Got it. So, I am a veteran educator, right? I've been in all different types of positions. So, I've taught K through 8. Most of my time has been in elementary schools. I've also been an instructional coach, assistant principal, professional development facilitator, and now education consultant. And so my work has mostly been in Title One schools. And I absolutely love working in Title One schools. And one thing that I often think that, we are like neglecting, not purposefully, but I think we just kind of overlook in education is workplace culture. And so I've been talking with a lot of administrators and they talk about like culture and it's all about students. And I'm like, what about the teachers? What about the staff members? And so my biggest thing that I'm about is really helping schools and teams, particularly leadership teams, look at how we are developing a cohesive and thriving workplace culture where people can, impact students just as they should and just as they want to.
Yeah, man, I love that so much. And I think about so often how when you are looking at and surveying an organization from like a bird's eye view, you can really see like what is the culture really here. If we can take a step back and look into that, you can see what is the true culture. And I think sometimes teams don't even realize that there's not the type of culture that they actually could have that could result from their collaboration together. So it's interesting today. I noticed that you posted. I'm just going to read this, and you posted this on LinkedIn. And I want you to tell a little bit more about it and what it makes you think about. Okay. So here's what Talesha posted. She said, according to a Better Up survey, workplace belonging can lead to an estimated 56% increase in job performance, a 50% reduction in turnover risk, and 75% decrease in employee sick days. In the school's front office and on leadership teams, there are not enough conversations about workplace culture and strong relationships. Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say this. So I have two kids, right? And so my second kid, I had him 5 years ago, and this was like right before pandemic. And so I decided to stay home with him for a year. And as we were going through pandemic and just, being closed in the house and virtual learning and all the things, my teacher friends, my leader friends were calling and just like, girl, you're not gonna believe, how horrible this is. Like that, all these stories. And so I love to read. And so I'm always reading articles, always reading books. And I'm really, really engaged in like various like Facebook leadership groups or what have you. And so just all the pieces to all the things that I was doing research wise just kind of aligned to so many people were like the morale in my space is horrible and what do I do about it? And people were saying like I can't control people's morale. I just can't control how people, come to work and how they view what they're doing. And it's like, but we may not be able to control how people are, viewing their work or whatnot, but we definitely can change their perception of what is happening, And so just with me like digging in or whatever, what that really looks like is, people are like, I want to shift retention. Like teachers are leaving. I read an article where like 200,000 teachers had left, education across the United States in 1 year. And it's like, my gosh, that's a lot of people that have just exited education. I'm like, my goodness, my kids need a teacher. Like, what are we going to do
Yeah.
to fix this? And a big part of that is creating a sense of belonging. And
Mm-hmm.
so there are typically about 6 reasons why. I mean, there are many reasons, but there are about 6 common reasons why people decide to leave, right? And so that's workload, it's fairness in the workplace, it's values, whether they're misaligned or what have you. It's relationships that they have with people in their buildings and some other things. And so what I wanted to do is like, I'm like, well, let me help my friends, fix how they're kind of looking at and thinking about creating this environment for their people to feel valued, seen, and heard. Because the resounding thing was people were feeling like all these things are done to me and I
Yep.
don't have any control in this matter. And so, when you look at that, it's like people just really they want to have a voice, So it's like we really need to like amplify people's voices and we need to give them a sense of belonging, among some other things. And so that's how I came up with the whole idea of the team engagement cards is because, people need conversations. They need opportunity to sit around a table and just talk and not talk and just vent about all the things that are going wrong, but just through storytelling about just what are some of the things that are going right. And so when you're looking at reducing people's risk for leaving a job, it's like bring them in, let them have a seat at the table. Like we always talk about, people want to have a seat at the table, but people are not ready. And it's like, but we can build people up and we can help them, develop that muscle and build their leadership capacity. And so that's those numbers really stood out to me because it's like people are leaving, and this is from other industries, but in education they're leaving because we're not really focused on what it's like to be a teacher or what it's like to be a leader, because not only are teachers like leaving or upset about how they've been treated at work, but it's also leaders. So it's like everybody is looking at how things are happening and they're just like, my goodness, this is not it. So it's like we
Yeah.
definitely can shift some of that a little bit.
Yeah. So I have been seeing a lot of people posting that very thing, like, well, all kinds of things. Number one, morale at my school is low. What do we do about it? Well, the response typically is those surface level things like or the question is, what are you doing to boost morale? Well, then it's all of you can do jeans passes, you can give them some additional time off, you can do this, and it's all just hitting surface level, but we're never digging a little bit deeper to what is the root cause of this morale problem. And I would venture to say that a lot of it has to do with exactly what you're talking about, is that they don't feel a sense of belonging. They don't feel like they have a seat at the table. But then when you think about that statement, let them have a seat at the table, I think a lot of leaders want to do that. They don't know what that looks like or sounds like or
Mhm.
even feels like, because maybe they haven't had an opportunity to do that themselves in the past, you know? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would make a huge difference if we could help people to be able to know how to let people have a seat at the table. It would help with that retention and that turnover, because that's the other thing that I'm seeing all over every single day. I see in teacher groups or leadership groups, what else can I do besides teaching? What else can I do besides education? And it is disheartening. It's so
Yeah,
sad.
yeah.
So
It's very,
tell
very sad. And
yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it is okay. So tell me a little bit about what you have done to try to solve this problem. How have you helped leaders and teachers to move past this?
Right. And so, like I just said, it's really about providing space, time, and opportunity. And what that starts with is that starts with a leader. It starts with a leader looking and saying and coming to the realization that one, I definitely can turn this ship. Like I was put in this position to impact student achievement or whatever, some people are put in their positions for culture or whatever the case may be. But it's like I was put in this position to deliver a strong vision and then get my people on board with that vision. And so it's like instead of doing things by yourself, it's literally inviting someone from every single grade level. It's literally inviting someone from every single department. Hey, y'all, we're here. This is where we are number wise. What are we really going to do? How do we see ourselves as a school? How are we going to be functioning? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like when someone walks into our building? So it's like really getting down to the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
and by having those conversations with people, it draws people in, and people start to take ownership. And people start respect one another, and they start respect the leader, and the leader starts to respect other people. And so it's like those connections are being built and strengthened through those conversations. And that's really how you help people to shift their outlook, and when you're talking about like morale is low, like I need morale ideas. And it's like, yeah, we can have morale ideas. And I have a whole list of morale boosters and
Yeah.
celebrations, but it's like, but that's only a part of your plan.
Yeah.
It can't be your whole plan. Your plan has to be like, what are my systems, in my building? Like in systems, when I'm talking about systems, it can be something as simple as like lesson planning, if that is something that's done in your building. Like, how are we going to do lesson plans? When are those lesson plans going to be due? And, like I remember when I first started teaching, my lesson plans were due Monday morning at like 7 o'clock or something like that. And
Hmm.
it's like when you have lesson plans due on Monday morning, you're basically telling an educator to do those over the weekend.
Yep.
And so it's like valuing people's time is very, very important. And so it's like really like, well, how can we do this during the day? So it's, again, it goes back to just sitting down with your people and asking them, what do you want? And I'm not saying ask the entire staff,
Right.
that may be too overwhelming at the beginning, but definitely having someone from every single grade level, every department that can come and voice their concerns and, and get on board with whatever the entire school is trying to do, not
Yeah.
just one person.
I love what you said about how we're really, I think a lot of what you're saying leads to me thinking about clarity. Like, what are we going to be really clear about? Lesson plans. Like, if we can just do the work of having conversations about the small things and have intentional conversations, it's going to make the biggest difference. So, tell me a little bit about your team engagement cards that you've developed.
Yes. So as I was saying earlier, I'm sitting at during the pandemic or after the pandemic, and I'm trying to figure out like how am I going to help my friends? Some of their teams are not working well together. There's a lot of competition, and like when people typically join a team.
Mhm.
You hire a new person, they come to the team. We sit down and we have conversations with that person when the team first gets together, for their first meeting, like during pre-planning. And people will ask questions like, well, how many years have you been teaching? And well, what subject do you love to teach most? And how many kids do you have? And things like that.
Yeah.
And those are wonderful, like questions, right? But if we can move a little bit beyond that and start a conversation with people where it's a back and forth type of dialogue, then that just helps to build that connection immediately. And so the whole idea behind the team engagement cards is it's a 52 card deck of conversation starters. And so instead of asking questions like, what's your favorite subject to teach, which is important, but you can ask that in addition to asking that, you would ask something like, what's your fondest memory? Or how do you spread kindness? Like, how do you intentionally spread kindness throughout the world? And with those questions, people are like, let me think for a second, and so then they'll answer, and someone else will respond to that and say, oh my gosh, I totally understand why you feel that way, or that makes me think of myself, and this thing here. So connections are built, and when you have stronger connections, it's like the respect is there, the competition can kind of start to dwindle. I mean, we got to look at some system things, but competition amongst team members can kind of dwindle a little bit. But people really start to understand why people do the things that they do. And so I have this one example that I often share. My very first time using the team engagement cards with the team, this teacher was sharing, I forget what the question was, but this teacher shared, I think it was something, I can't remember what the question is. I'm not going to try to keep remembering, but this teacher shared that her people think, oh, and the question was, what do people think they know about you that they don't really know? And so she was
Ooh.
like, people think that I am standoffish, but I'm really not. The pandemic like scared the mess out of me. And so when we had to come back into the building, like of course I had to come back to work. She was like, I masked up, I had my hand sanitizer, I had my wipes, and I was in my room. I literally clean my room like every single day. And then when I go home, I wash everything from head to toe. My outer jacket, my shoes, everything is washed. She was like, because I've truly become a germaphobe. And so her
Wow.
teammates met her with so much compassion there was so much understanding,
Yeah.
and they started to really understand, like, well, she's not standoffish. It's
Hmm.
not that she doesn't want to come in here and play with us. She's nervous about entering a new space with more germs. And
Yeah.
so it's like, again, just imagine what that team is now able to do
Yep.
knowing this information about this teacher. And I'm not saying that people need to share all of their business, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, you're asked these questions and it makes you think, and then you feel safe enough to kind of share some things. And it
Yeah.
just makes people, just lock in. It's like, I'm going to rally around you. I'm going to rally behind you. I'm in support of you now
Right.
that I understand and I know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about trust. Like on your social media posts, I see all the time you posting something about building trust and how important trust is in teams. And I can see how these team engagement cards does just that, because you're taking just a simple question, but it's almost like you've taken the simple generic questions that we ask each other in regular conversation, but you've amplified those questions to make them super intentional, so that we're getting to a deeper level of understanding a person and their true identity. And that's so important.
Right, right. And many times, and I'm just speaking about my experiences, but you know, sometimes in Title One schools, like we don't have time for fluffy stuff, as people say. Like we don't have time for teachers to sit down and get to know one another. Leaders don't
Mhm.
have time to sit in grade level meetings where people are, just talking about, what happened to them over the weekend. Like we need to get to these numbers, or we need to be planning, and it's like we can get to those things, and it doesn't take a lot of time
Yep.
to open with a warm welcome and say, hey guys, today we're going to start with, how do you spread kindness throughout the world?
Yeah.
It takes like 3 minutes for everybody to ponder for a second and then just kind of share out if they're comfortable.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be something long and drawn out, but trust is definitely what is needed when we really want to get to a place where I'm not just planning for my students, but I'm planning for the students that are coming next year. And I'm also planning for the students that are down the hall from me, that are with my teammate, because we're a collective unit here.
Yes.
And when we collectively work together, then all of our students do better. So
Yeah.
trust is, I think it is the thing,
Yep. Yep.
that is definitely needed and needs to be amplified.
Yeah. It's like that secret sauce, right? And nobody can find the
Yeah.
secret sauce for some reason.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like,
And it's like it's the simplest thing, and it's right here.
yeah, yes, it is. And you're so right. I cannot count the number of years that I have started a school year and have even suggested, hey, let's be sure we have some team collaboration time at the beginning, like during in service, so that they can get to know each other. But the idea I think that comes across is, oh, we're going to do some, like icebreakers or something and like team building activities. I'm like, no, 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 you're not understanding what I think. There's just like this assumption of what we mean by really getting to connect with and understand team members. And that's kind of a bummer. But if you were going to suggest your team engagement cards for a leader to use it, like what would be some steps that they go about using them?
Well, one, for right now, well, there are a couple of things, but this is what I would say. Um, I would say pull in your leadership team, like your extended leadership team. I know for some people, the leadership team may be the principal, assistant principal, instructional coach, maybe counselor, but pulling your entire instructional leadership team, a representative from every grade level, somebody from every department, your secretary, if you're able to do that, your registrar. So literally, every single person is represented. Pull them in and simply say, hey guys, today we're going to spend some time getting to know one another, because it is very important for us to know each other. It's important for us to function as a cohesive unit. And it is important for us to work with each other and have compassion for one another, to have deep respect for one another, so that when someone shares an idea, you know, we're able to hear that idea versus listening for that idea and trying to find the hole in it.
Yeah.
And sit them down in groups of 3 to 5. Give them an opportunity to select some cards, and give them a couple rounds where they're just sharing out, they read the cards and then they share out that information with one another. And that's exactly what people do when they start to use the team engagement cards. And when you do that with your leadership team, they're going to say, "Oh, I need to do this with my team.
Yeah.
I need to do this with my department.
Hmm.
We need to do this vertically
Yep.
in our committee meetings. We need this."
Yep.
And then someone else is going to become a representative and say, okay, from that leadership team, like, hey, I'm going to take this back and I'm going to do the same thing, but maybe this time it's just a warm welcome. It's just going to be a 3 to 5 minute question at the beginning of every Tuesday meeting, or at the beginning of every Tuesday Thursday meeting, however
Mhm.
that pans out in that building.
Yeah. As you're talking about this, I'm thinking about all of the different scenarios that you could use these team engagement cards. Like I could see it, like you said, we're not just thinking about, beginning of the year in service with your teams, but you could use this at the beginning of your faculty meetings. You could post a question like on a bulletin board and have people respond in that way. You could do a quick video through your learning management system and say, here's the question I want you to think about. Talk with your teammates at recess or at lunch or whatever. There are so many different ways you could utilize this to truly support positive morale and boost morale.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And like I said earlier, like it's a part of the plan, When you think
Mhm.
about morale, it just can't be like boosters or ways to celebrate and bring people together.
Yeah.
It definitely has to be about people having a seat at the table. Like I can't say it enough. It
Yeah.
also has to be about having fair practices across departments and grade levels. Like people often call and say, "Girl, you are not going to believe this. My this lady, she barely does what she's supposed to do, but she got a promotion." And so people often think that, oh, this is just not fair, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's not fair from your perspective,
Right.
So it has to also be about having some transparency,
Yeah.
and letting people know, like, this is how the decision is made and why the decision was made.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, just opening up and just being just open and honest and authentic just allows people to, one, trust you more.
Mhm.
But it allows people to see that, like, I'm a real person, I'm a real human, I make mistakes, I'm just like everybody else,
Yep.
and we're in this together.
Yeah.
When people are having like a hard time, it's like having that person to lean on that can help you through it all, is one of the reasons why I definitely developed these cards.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm super big on just having relationships with people. It's like
Mhm.
we're whole human beings, and when we come to work, to educate our children, like we need to be able to come to work and bring our full selves. And a part of our full selves is having spaces where we can vent, or spaces where we can celebrate, spaces where we can question without, looking at us like we're causing a problem, but it's like I'm really trying to understand. So
Yeah. Yeah. And these team engagement cards, if they are fostering the kind of conversations that build that trust, that serve as the foundation for, your teams and how you function together, that's going to make it so much, I don't want to say easier, but it's going to make it so much more, well, maybe easier is the word, but to be transparent and to be authentic and to be vulnerable and to understand the human side of other people as they're making decisions and also making mistakes.
right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And
So,
like through storytelling, it's like it's the perfect way
yeah,
to, show like this is who I am and these are my values. And it's like I'm starting to see how your values are lived every single day
right.
just through your storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see how as you're working through some of the questions on the team engagement cards, you're going to start to notice some of the responses in people's actions. And it's going to make
Yeah.
so much more sense why they're making the decisions that they're making. And oh, okay, that action makes sense now. Kind of like you were talking about with the lady who people thought maybe was standoffish, but she's really not. It's her life experience that has created this in her. So it creates so much more empathy for that person.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit. We're going to be wrapping up here in just a little bit, but I want you to tell people how they can, if you were going to give them like something to take away from this conversation, first of all, what would that be?
What I want everyone to take away is that you have a voice and your voice matters just as your story matters. And your story should always be told. And again, it's not like telling your whole life story, but your story of just kindness or a story about how you take risks, like these really big ideas that we want people to collaborate, right? We want people to like come together and rally behind a new initiative. And so it's like allowing people to tell stories around when they've done things before, just really helps to kind of like open people up and like soften the mood a little bit, so that we can really like move into the work that we're doing for the day.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. And tell us how we can, number one, how can people find the team engagement cards and how can they connect with you? Because I know that you do this work specifically with teams, right?
Right, right. I do. So how can you connect with me? You can connect with me on LinkedIn, just as Talesha Savage. You can also connect on Instagram, not so much, but you can a little bit. On Instagram, I definitely respond to like DMs and things like that. And you can get the team engagement cards as soon as they're released at the top of the year. Right now, the team engagement cards are only utilized um, in workshops that I facilitate myself. But at the top of the year, people will be able to order the team engagement cards and they'll be shipped right to you. So I'm super, super excited about that.
Yeah.
And I also want to share that for everyone who is like, I just need a quick morale booster or a quick way to celebrate my team. Like I have a whole list of things. You don't even have to think about them. They're super cheap or free. And so we'll be sure to like leave that for you. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And guys, you are going to be able to catch all of this. I'm going to put it in the show notes. You'll see it in the comments in my Facebook group and on LinkedIn, but you'll see it in the show notes on YouTube and the podcast. So if you're catching the replay, be sure to check those things out, like the notes at the bottom, so you can see where you can find Talesha and get those team engagement cards. Because I can't wait. It's going to be one of the first purchases. I'm going to be like stalking you and waiting for you to drop those because I'm going to try to be the first person that purchases it.
I love it.
Okay.
It's like I need these for my teams.
Yeah, I'm so excited. All right, guys. So here's what I want you to do. I want you, if you were in the comments, let us know what was most useful for you here. And then be sure to comment winner, because remember, tomorrow is when I'm going to be doing the drawing for the 3 different prizes that I talked about: the Clarity Cycle email course, the Clarity Cycle Mastermind, 50% off of that, and then also a book, which is one of my favorites. And if you want to know more about what is this Clarity Cycle that this chick's talking about, go to bit.ly/Clarity Cycle, and you can find out all about it there. And then don't forget to connect with Talesha on all the social media platforms. Okay, Talesha, I had so much fun with you. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Like, this has been great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, I want to give a huge shout out to you for tuning into today's Change Catalyst conversation. I would love for you to do me 2 solid favors. Number 1, if you have enjoyed this or any other Change Catalyst conversation, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I've got a lot of great content and guests coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, if you are thinking of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this show, share it with them. The only way to make change happen is through a multiplier effect. And you can be a multiplier by sharing this show. Until next time, I want you to go off and do the great things that Change Catalysts do.